Okay, and share the screen. Okay. So do you see lecture 14 at your end?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there is a general request, this is nothing to do with lecture 14. In all your submissions, right, in the assignment submission, I would request all of you to maintain the index page as the first page. What do I mean by the index page? So you would number the pages and you would write down, so you would say question and you would say page. Yeah, so you would say question 1 attempted on which page, question 2 attempted on which page, question 3 attempted on which page, question 4 attempted on which page, and so on. Please maintain a table like this for all your assignment submissions, right? It will sort of help us out a lot. Yeah. In fact, I would request you if you can do the same thing for the quiz, but let's see. Yeah, for at least for the assignment where you have a lot of time, please do that. Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, all right. Thank
Okay,
you so much. Yeah, this is the first thing. All right. Okay, so last time we talked about the limit superior and limits inferior, right? So let's just quickly recall that. So given a sequence of real numbers, so let's consider xn a sequence of real numbers. Associated to xn, we described a set, which is, what is this set? This is the set of all subsequential limits of the sequence xn in the extended real number system. Yeah, which means that it consists of all the points in the extended real number system such that some subsequence of xn converges to the point x, right? Such that there is a subsequence xnk of xn with the property that xnk converges to the point x as k tends to infinity. Yeah, so this is the description of the set. Last time we noted that E is always non-empty, no matter which sequence you start off with. That was the first observation. So you are looking at a non-empty subset of the extended real number system, and you can make sense out of the supremum and infimum of this set in appropriate sense, right? So for example, if E is not bounded above, then you define the supremum of E to be positive infinite. Yeah, under the assumption that positive infinite is an upper bound of every subset of the extended real number system. So anyways, with this consideration, which we talked about last time, we define the upper limit or the lim sup of the sequence xn to be the supremum of the set E, and the lim inf of the sequence xn as the infimum of the set E. Okay. So, this portion, this topic on limit inferior and limit superior is, to the best of my knowledge, not there in the book that we have recommended, Bartley and Shepard. So I will try to put up some notes or look up an appropriate book and post the relevant pages on Moodle over the weekend. Yes, because I believe you should have something to read on. Okay. So we saw this last time and sort of investigated various possibilities. One is the limit superior positive infinite, one is the limit superior negative infinite, and one is the limit superior and honest real number. Yeah, and similar sort of statement one can work out for the limit inferior as well. Yes. So what I would like to do today is look at an alternate definition of the limit superior and limit inferior. This is also being taken up in the assignment 5, which is due coming Saturday. But anyways, so last time we also noted this, that unlike the limit superior and limit inferior of every sequence of real numbers exist, right? In fact, limit superior and limit inferior of every bounded sequence of real numbers, it's actually a real number. Anyways, and the sequence converges if and only if its limit superior and limit inferior are equal, in which case its limit is their common value. Yeah. So if this seems too fast, don't bother. This is what we sort of did last time, and I'm sort of going to put up some notes, as I said, on Moodle very soon. Okay. So let's do this. Yeah. So let's look at an alternate definition. Again, we are given a sequence xn of real numbers, and so we introduce two more sequences in the following manner. Yeah, they are defined in the following manner. Yeah. So what am I saying? Consider for each index k, consider y subscript k as defined as supremum of xn such that n is bigger than k. Right? So what is this doing? Right? I'll write that down. Yeah. So this is supremum of, just for your understanding, I'm writing it, this is xk, xk plus 1, xk plus 2, and so on, right? Correct? And likewise, I also define another sequence, zk, as the infimum of xn as n bigger than k. Yeah. So I'm considering the tail of the sequence xn and considering appropriate supremum and infimum respectively, right? So as before, this is the infimum of xn, xk, xk plus 1, xk plus 2, right? So this index k comes from where you start off with. Yeah. So all terms bigger than little k. All terms in the sequence indexed by bigger than little k. Yeah. Okay. So let's look at this. Right. So consider for each positive integer k, yk, and zk as defined below. Okay. So let me compare the terms yk and yk plus 1. Right? Can I compare yk and yk plus 1 in some manner? Yeah. So if you look at the term yk and you look at the term yk plus 1. Yeah. Can I compare these two quantities? See, yk plus 1 by definition would be supremum of xk plus 1, xk plus 2, and so on, right? So yk in comparison to yk plus 1 is supremum over a larger set, right? Is that okay? So now can you compare yk and yk plus 1?
Ma'am, yk would be greater than or equal to yk plus 1.
Always. Is that okay? Does everybody follow this? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. So what am I saying? As k increases, the supremum in the definition of yk is taken over smaller sets. Correct? And hence yk is always bigger than yk plus 1. And similarly, what can you say, what can you compare the terms zk and zk plus 1? So zk plus 1 is by definition infimum of xk plus 1, xk plus 2 and so on. So zk is an infimum over a larger set and zk plus 1 is an infimum over the smaller set. So how do you compare the two terms?
Ma'am, zk will be less than or equal to zk plus 1.
Yes, is that okay? Does everybody follow this bit? Thank you so much. So I'll write it down in case some of you are lost. So please note that as little k increases, the supremum and the infimum in the above definitions are taken over smaller sets. Conclusion of all of this is that the new sequence yk as k runs over the set of positive integers is monotonically decreasing and the sequence zk is monotonically increasing. Does everybody follow this bit?
Ma'am, could you explain this part again?
Yeah. See, when you look at compare the terms, so I'll maybe write down, let's look at yk and yk plus 1. Yeah, just for illustration, I'll write yk plus 1. So yk plus 1 is by definition the supremum of over xk plus 1, xk plus 2, and so on. Right? So if you compare yk and yk plus 1, yk is supremum over xk plus 1 and xk plus 2. And when you look at yk, you are taking a supremum over all these terms. Additionally, you're also considering the term xk, right? So yk is a supremum over a larger set in comparison to yk plus 1, right? So how do you compare the two things? It would follow that yk is bigger than yk plus 1, isn't it? Yeah, I'll maybe, if you want me to write it down, both of them together. So this is xk, xk plus 1 and xk plus 2. See, all those terms which I appear here in the definition of yk plus 1 also make appearance here. And there's one more extra term xk. Yeah. So this is a supremum over a larger set, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so what I'm trying to say is that if you have two sets, A and B, if A is sitting inside B, how do you compare the supremum of A and B? What can you say about the supremum of A and the supremum of B? So this is a very general observation. Yeah. So how do you compare them? If A is a subset of B and you're taking supremum over A and supremum over B, how do you compare supremum of A and B? Which one way would be the inequality true?
Supremum of A less than equals to supremum of B.
Yeah, is that correct? And how do you compare the infimum of A and infimum of B?
And it will be opposite.
The infimum. So that's all that we are using upstairs, right?
Yes.
Is that okay? So, written in fancy language, this small observation tells us in the context of these definitions that the sequence yk is monotonically decreasing and the sequence zk is monotonically increasing. Correct? Yeah, I'll just write that down for emphasis one more time. So that is the sequence yk is monotonically decreasing. Is that okay? Everybody with me up till this point? Monotonically decreasing. And so the sequence ZZ, right? There's no X now. The sequence ZK is monotonically increasing. Right? So we know this, that every monotonically increasing sequence which is bounded above converges and converges to its, what can you say about it?
Supremum.
Supremum, right? And likewise, every monotonically decreasing sequence which is bounded below converges and converges to its infimum, right? Okay, so we will define, so next is the definition. So you define the limits of these sequences to be the lim sup and the lim inf. So let me write. So by definition, the lim sup of the sequence xn is equal to the limit of the sequence yn. Right? So what am I saying? You start, given a sequence xn of real numbers, you consider a sequence yk as defined above, and note that yk is monotonically decreasing, and you define the limit of the sequence yk as the lim sup of the sequence yeah. And by definition, by what we just said orally, this is actually equal to the infimum of what? The range of the sequence yn. Is that okay? Does everybody follow this? Every monotonically decreasing sequence, let me not write that down. Let me just complete this as first, yeah. Okay, and the limit inferior of the sequence xn n tends to infinity is defined to be the limit of the sequence zn. So associated to the sequence xn, you define two more sequences, yn and xn, yn and zn as defined upstairs. Yn turns out to be monotonically decreasing, zn turns out to be monotonically increasing. Yeah. Okay. So one should ask, why does the lim sup of xn exist? Why does the lim sup of xn exist?
Because he is always non-empty.
See, that is true, but we are not looking at the set E now. Yeah, that is one way to look at the limit superior and limit inferior. Now, looking at this definition, we will say that limit superior and limit inferior exist. Why is that? Because as the case before, we will allow negative infinite and positive infinite. Yeah, so I'll just maybe note that, maybe write that down, and then we ask this question again. Yeah, so let's just note that. As for the limit of, so far we have been only considering monotonically decreasing sequence when they are sort of bounded. Yeah, so let me sort of point this out. As for the limit of monotone sequences, yeah, so we will allow, it is convenient to allow the lim inf and the lim sup to be infinite. Right, and I'll just state explicitly what this means. Yeah. So let's look at this. You know, if you go back to the definition of the sequence yk, yeah. So given x, given a sequence xn of real numbers, you know, yn, we don't know whether it is bounded above, right? Isn't it? But can we say that the sequence yk is bounded below? So please think about these questions. I think you're quite lost. So let me just go ahead and write down what I wanted to say. So, yeah, we have, so I wanted to say this. So let me finish this and I'll sort of surely take your questions. So we have yn as, so I say that yn is strictly bigger than minus infinity and equals positive infinity for every index little n. And why is this the case? Since you know, recall what are yns. You know, yns are supremum of something, right? And what are these? So supremum of xn n bigger than k, right? So we talked about this time, last time, that supremum of a non-empty set cannot be negative infinite, right? Correct. So I'll just re-emphasize that. Since the supremum of a non-empty set cannot be negative infinite. See, all I'm trying to emphasize here is that I don't have an equality here, that yn cannot, so I put minus infinity is strictly less than yns. Yeah, why don't I have an equality here? That's because yns are defined as supremum of something. In fact, it's a supremum of a non-empty set which cannot be negative infinite. Yeah. But you know, I'll also point it down here. But you know, it is very well possible that yns go down to negative infinite. That may happen, yeah. But you know, so this is not always, but we may have this. Is this okay? Everybody with me up till this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Similarly, you know, I'll also sort of make a similar statement about Zn, and then I sort of take your question. Similarly, Zn's I claim are strictly less than positive infinite because, you know, they are defined as an infimum of a non-empty set which cannot be positive infinite. Yeah, but surely it is very well possible that these Zn's, which are monotonically increasing, they increase up to positive infinite. That may happen in some examples, and we will see in a little while. Okay. Okay. Any questions in so far what we have discussed? Okay, so I believe there are no questions. I will here's another observation. So please note that ZNs are always at most less than or equal to Yn for each index n, right? Why is that? You look at the definition, Zns are defined as infimums and Yns are defined as the supremum of the same set, right? So this is always true. And this is with the understanding that the usual ordering convention is permitted for positive and negative infinite also. So by taking the limits as n tends to infinity, it follows that so what am I trying to say now? Now takes the limit n tending to infinity both the sides. So the limit of Zn is at most the limit of Yn, but the limit of the sequence Zn is by definition the lim inf of the sequence Xn, and the limit of the sequence Yn is by definition the lim sup of the sequence Xn. So I'm just rewriting that. Correct? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, is that okay with everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let's sort of spend a little more time before we go to examples. So what is that I defined as the lim sup of the Xn sequence Xn? We defined it as limit of Yns, right? And Yns are monotonically decreasing, right? So please note that the lim sup exists and is finite. If I ask you this question, when is the lim sup of the sequence Xn exists and is finite? Then you should be able to say something about appropriate conditions on the sequence Yn, correct? Does that make sense to everybody? Everybody with me up till this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So I would say that if each of the Yns is finite and the sequence Yn is bounded from below, right? Now, where does this condition on Yns being bounded from below come in? Because we are under the assumption that Yns are monotonically decreasing. If the Yns are bounded below, then then we know this, right? Every monotonically decreasing sequence which is bounded below converges to the infimum of the greatest lower bound, right? Which exists, right? So that is all. You've just unwinded that, and you will get when is the lim sup of Xn exists and is finite. Okay. So is this okay? So the part that still remains is to be discussed is how are the definitions that we talked about last time and this, the new definition that we discussed now, how are the two one in the same, right? So that is something to be done, right? We will sort of shed some light on that a little later. But so far what we discussed, does that make sense? If yes, then I will sort of like to take up an example. Maybe that will help.
Yes.
Is this okay? All right. So let's see an example, and if you have any questions, we can still get back to this. So let's take this example. Okay. So let's consider the sequence Xn given as, let's start with something simple, 1 minus 1 by n. Okay. So in this case, you can also look at the definition that we did last time, and you can sort of write down the subsequential limits and things like that. But let's try to use the definition that we just discussed, right? Okay. So let me consider, so let's consider Yk. Remember, how did I define Yk? Yk was by definition the supremum of Xn as so xk plus 1, xk plus 2, and so on, right? So in this case, what would that be? It would be the supremum of 1 minus 1 by n as n is bigger than k. Right? So I'll write it down one more time. This is the supremum of 1 minus 1 by k, 1 minus 1 by k plus 1, 1 minus 1 by k plus 2, and so on. Correct? Yeah. So let me write down for each positive integer k, let us consider yk defined as follows. Okay. Okay. So what should be this yk? Supremum of 1 minus 1 by k, 1 minus k plus 1, 1 minus k plus 2. What would that be?
One.
1. Is that correct? Is that correct? Does everybody see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, does everybody see that? And can I leave you to fix this? Yeah, this is a supremum of a set that we are asking, right? And it is 1 in this case. Is that okay? Very nice. Yeah, and for each index k, it is going to be 1, right? Independent of the index k. Is that correct with it? Is that okay? Everybody with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so now that we have worked out yks, let's look at zk. So recall, how did we define zk? We defined zk as the following. Yeah, so zk was defined as the infimum of xn as, yeah, so the infimum of xk, xk plus 1, xk plus 2, and so on. Right? So in this example, xk is 1 minus 1 by k. Yeah, so I'll just write that down. So the infimum of 1 minus 1 by k, 1 minus 1 by k plus 1, and 1 minus k plus 2, and so on. So what is this infimum in this example? What is zk?
And 1 minus 1 by k.
It is going to be 1 minus 1 by k. Thank you so much. Correct? Is that okay? Is everybody with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct? Yeah. So the sequence yn is monotonically decreasing. You know, it's actually the constant sequence in this case, but anyways, and the sequence zk is, you know, you see in this example, is monotonically increasing. Yeah. But both the sequences yn and yk and zk converge to 1 in this example, right? Yk is the constant sequence 1, and zk, if you take the limit as k tends to infinity, is going to be 1, right? Is that okay? So, so lim sup, so recall the definition. The lim sup of the sequence xn, n tends to infinity, is by definition the limit of the sequence yn, which is the constant sequence 1. So the limit is 1 in this case, and the lim inf of the sequence xn, n tending to infinity, is the limit of the sequence zn. Sorry, it's rather shabby. So it's the limit of the sequence zn in this example, which means that it is the limit n tending to infinity 1 minus 1 by n, which is 1. Correct? I'll sort of leave it here, but I'm sure all of you can work this out, that the limit of 1 minus 1 by n exists and equals 1. Correct? Yeah. So the lim sup and the lim inf agree. So by definition, so the upshot of all of this is conclusion in this example. The lim sup of the sequence xn n tends to infinity equals the lim inf of the sequence xn n tends to infinity is equals the limit of the sequence xn, which is 1 in this case. All of them exist are 1. Yeah. So the example that we took here, xn was a bounded monotone sequence. Yeah, it's monotonically increasing. Correct? Is this okay with everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any questions so far? Yeah, is this bit okay with everybody present here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so let me take one more example just to sort of clarify things. I think this is a very important concept that comes up every now and then, and the more examples that you work out, the more comfortable you are going to be. So example, okay, so let's consider xn as defined as minus 1 to the power n plus 1, 1 plus 1 by n. Right? Oh, okay. Now, in this example, when you look at a sequence like this, then it will be much wiser to look at the definition 2 of the limit superior and limit inferior that we just discussed, instead of appealing to the first definition that we talked about last time. Yeah. So let's see. So I would need your help in figuring this out. So let's, given this sequence xn, let's consider yks. By definition, recall yks are the supremum of xn as n is bigger than k. Yeah, which means that the supremum of xk plus 1, sorry, the first term is xk. So this is the supremum of xk, xk plus 1, xk plus 2, and so on. Right? So this is the supremum of, so I'll write that down. So minus 1 to the power k plus 1, 1 plus 1 by, so again, I made a mistake. I'll just correct that. Oh, it's okay. Minus 1 to the power k plus 2, 1 plus 1 by k plus 1, and so on. Right? In this case, there is a dichotomy. Depending on whether little k is odd or even, you're going to get two different answers, right? Is that correct for the supremum?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So can you help me out to sort this? What is that I should write? If k is odd, then what should be the output? And what happens if k is even? What happens if k is odd? If k is odd, then k plus 1 is even. And the first term would be 1 plus 1 by k. And the second term would be minus of 1 plus 1 by k plus 1. The third term would be 1 plus 1 by k plus 2. So what would be the supremum of this set?
1.
1 plus 1 upon k.
1 plus 1 upon k. That's right. Thank you so much. Yeah, does everybody see this? You know, all you have to do is just write down carefully. Yeah, and if k is even, that means k plus 1 is odd. So the first term would be minus of 1 plus 1 by k. The second term would be 1 plus k plus 1. So the supremum would be 1 plus 1 by k plus 1. Yeah? So these are little things which I would leave you to check. Is that okay? See, all it requires is you have to think, sort of sit down calmly, do it on your own, and it will fall through. Is that okay? Okay. So let's quickly fix zk also. Zk is by definition the infimum of xn, as n is bigger than k. This is the infimum of xk plus 1, and so on, right? So which means in this example, zk is the infimum of minus 1 to the power k plus 1, 1 plus 1 by k, minus 1 to the power k plus 2, 1 plus 1 by k plus 1, and so on, right? So again, as before, there's going to be a dichotomy depending on whether k is even or k is odd. Yeah. So I would again request you to help me out. So what happens if k is odd, and what happens if k is even? What should I get? If k is odd, then k plus 1 is even, which means the first term would be 1 plus 1 by k. The second term would be minus of 1 plus 1 by k plus 1. The third term would be 1 plus 1 by k plus 2. So, to my mind, it looks like it would be minus of 1 plus 1 by k plus 1. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And if k is even, then k plus 1 is odd, which means the first term would be minus of 1 plus a, and the second term would be this. So I think it's going to be minus of 1 plus 1 by k. Is that correct, or did I make a mistake here? Please check. I'll wait for a minute. Is this okay with everybody present here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, excellent. So shall we go ahead? Yeah. Okay. So now that we have figured out lim sup, yk and zk, time to write down their limits. So let's recall, by definition, the limit superior of the sequence xn equals the limit of the sequence yn. Now let's go up and check what is the sequence yn. So yn is 1 plus 1 by n if n is odd, and yn is 1 plus 1 by n plus 1 if n is even. No matter whether n is odd or even, the limit of the sequence yn exists and equals 1, correct? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And so this is 1, and the limit inferior of the sequence xn, n tends to infinity, would be the limit of the sequence zn. So what is zn? Zn is minus of 1 plus 1 by n plus 1 if n is odd, and minus of 1 plus 1 by n if n is even, right? So this limit also exists in equals minus 1, correct? Right? So the limit of the sequence does not exist in this case, right? The limit of the sequence xn does not exist in this case, right? Right? But the lim sup is 1 and the lim inf is minus 1. Yeah. right? So, you know, I'll just write it down. Recall xn was minus 1 to the power n plus 1, 1 plus 1 by n. Yeah, so just recall that. Now, please note that the limb soup here turns out to be 1. So that, you know, note that infinitely many terms of the sequence xn are strictly greater than the limb soup. Correct? So the limb soup does not bound tail of the sequence from above. It cannot. Right? And similarly, the limb inf is minus of 1. The limb inf does not bound any tail of the sequence from below. There are infinitely many terms of the sequence xn which are strictly smaller than the limb inf. That's the first observation. And the second observation is that every number strictly greater than the limb soup, which means every number strictly greater than 1, eventually bounds the sequence from above. You know, this is true in much more generality. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, see, last time when we saw we didn't see an example. Well, we did see an example, but last time when we looked at the definition consisting of set of subsequential limits of the sequence xn, while we were trying to define the limit superior and the limit inferior, we looked at the case when what happens if the sequence xn converges to negative infinity. Yeah. And the case when the sequence xn is not bounded above, right? So the limb soup was positive infinite if the sequence is not bounded above, and if the sequence xn converges to negative infinite, it turned out the limb soup is negative infinite. Now over here, this example, over here, the sequence xn is bounded above and does not converge to negative infinity. Yeah. So this is the example when the limb soup exists and is a honest real number, right? We are it's not positive infinite or negative infinite. We did not look at this case last time. You know, we did not look at sort of that case in detail last time. So I'm just trying to sort of shed some light here. Is this okay? Does everybody follow this bit? Any questions? Okay, so if there are no further questions, you know, what is that I would like you to do? You consider a sequence, so I'll just write that down. So this is something to sort of think about. So let xn be a sequence of real numbers, right? And so the limb soup of the sequence xn always exists. I'm going to denote it by x naught. Right? Okay. So we last time we discussed this case. When is x naught equals to positive infinite? When is x naught equal to negative infinite? Please think about the case. When does x naught belong to R? Right? We talked about it. This is under the assumption that the sequence xn is is not, when does this happen? This happens if the sequence xn is bounded above and does not diverge to negative infinity. Sorry, does not converge to negative infinity. So I'll answer that. So the lim sup is a finite real number if and only if the sequence xn is bounded above and does not converge to negative infinite. Right? So you will get the same answer if you unwind the definition that we talked about today. I will leave you to figure it out, right? But I would like you to sort of think about this, right? That if x naught is a real number, then things like this, so part one, does x naught satisfy the following? Yeah, for every epsilon positive, there exists a capital N such that the terms of the sequence xn are always less than epsilon whenever n is bigger than n. Yeah. For the limit to exist, the term, sorry, there's no L here, this is x naught. Now, where is this stemming from? So, if the sequence xn were to be convergent to the point x naught, then xn has to live in the interval x naught minus epsilon, x naught plus epsilon, some stage onwards. We don't know if the sequence xn converges. Yeah, all we know is the lim sup exists. Right? Does that imply this? Things like that. Yeah, please think about these questions. Again, all you have to do is just unwind the definition of the supremum and the infimum, right? Just note that x naught is the, what is x naught? X naught is the limit of the sequence yn, and yn is some monotonically decreasing sequence. Yeah, please think about it. We can always take it up once you have given a good thought about it. Yeah. Is this okay? Any questions, please ask. Okay, so if there are no questions, so Kritika, in the morning session, you were asking me about problems from assignment 5. So do you think now you would be able to sort of try them out on your own?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so try them, and any difficulties, we can always discuss them later. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so, I would like to maybe this is all I wanted to say about the limit inferior and limit superior for now. In the notes that I put up on Moodle, I will try to sort of illustrate maybe a few more examples or try to give in some more ideas about it. But maybe that's all for now on this topic. So I'll again ask any questions. If not, then we move on to the next topic. Okay. All right. So I'm assuming there are no further questions. So the next topic that would like to take up is infinite series. Okay. What is an infinite series? Okay. So given a sequence xn of real numbers so we can use the field structure, so the field structure on R, which means the operations of addition and multiplication, which are in tandem with each other, to define the corresponding sequence of partial sums. I'll write that down, what I mean by that. Define the associated sequence of partial sums. So I am going to invent this notation Sn. What is this? This is the sum of terms of the sequence A1, A2 up to index n. Okay. So this is summation A little n running from 1 to n. And you do that for each index n. Sorry, there's no A here, there's all xn. Sorry, I'll be careful next time onwards. So this is x1, this is x2, and the last term is xn, and this is the finite sum, right? So suppose that there were only finitely many non-zero terms xn in the original sequence. Yeah. So what is that I'm saying? If there are only finitely many non-zero terms xn in the original sequence, so these are terms, not a sequence here, so there should not be a parenthesis. Then what can you say about the sequence of partial sums Sn? If all but finitely many terms of the sequence xn are non-zero to start off with, what can you say about the sequence Sn?
Ma'am, it will converge
It will converge to what?
to any fixed value that is sum of that values.
Correct. So the sequence of partial sums Sn would eventually be constant, right? Yeah, be it sum in terms of the sequence xn. And that constant would be the sum of the non-zero terms of xn, isn't it? Yeah. Then the sequence xsn would eventually be constant. I hope everybody is with me. Would eventually be constant, and that constant would be the sum of non-zero terms of the sequence xn. So all I want to say is that in this case, I can sum the terms of the sequence xn but only those contribute for which xn is non-zero. So I will take all these indices such that xn is non-zero, and this is going to be what is the limit of the sequence Sn of partial sums. Correct? Right? So this motivates the definition of the infinite sum. So this, write that down. This motivates the definition of the infinite sum. Summation n1 to infinity xn. Yeah, so I'm sure all of you have seen this symbol before, isn't it? Summation n equal to 1 to infinity xn. Yeah, you call it a series, right? So what is a series? See, a series xn, this series is not by, infinite sum. Xn is not adding, x1 plus x2 plus x3. This is just a notation. What is meaning of this infinite sum is actually you are talking about the sequence Sn here. So you consider the sequence xn, given the sequence xn, you define the associated sequence of partial sums Sn. And the symbol here, the symbol n running from 1 to infinity xn, means that you are looking at the sequence S subscript n, where capital N is running over the set of natural numbers. It just means this sequence and nothing else. Is that okay? So I'll just sort of maybe highlight that. I did not write it. So the infinite series. The infinite series is the sequence. It's just a sequence. S subscript n, right? You are not adding x1 plus x2 plus x3 and so on. You are looking at the sequence Sn of associated partial sums. Do I make myself clear? Everybody follows this bit?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. See, this is very important because, this notation can be confusing, but it doesn't mean anything more than the sequence of partial sums. Okay, so let me complete this. This motivates the definition of the infinite sum as the limit of the sequence Sn of partial sums, provided the limit exists, right? Excellent. Okay, so let me make a formal definition. Suppose that xn is a sequence of real numbers. So you look at the associated sequence of partial sum. So if the associated sequence of partial sums defined in the sense described upstairs, Sn, so here the running index is capital N, n equal to 1 to infinity. If so what is this? Let's recall. So Sn is by definition the sum of all the terms of the sequence xn up to stage capital N. Yeah. So this can be done for each positive integer n. So you look at the associated sequence of partial sums Sn. if that sequence converges to, let's say, L, we say that the infinite series summation n equal to 1 to infinity xn converges to L. And one writes it in the following manner. Right? So L is nothing but the limit of the sequence of partial sums and not obtained by simply adding the terms of the sequence xn. Is that okay? Does everybody follow this?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. All right. So what is that we did here? Given a sequence xn, we constructed an associated sequence of partial sums Sn, right? Now, one can also do the other way around, that is, given the sequence of partial sums Sn, one may ask, how do I recover the original sequence Xn to start off with? Yeah, so here is a recipe. So given Sn, the sequence of partial sums, so how do you recover the original sequence xn? So x1 would be what? X1 would be S1. Yeah, remember what is Sn? Sn is summation little n 1 to n. So sum of all the terms of the sequence xn up to stage capital N. So S1 is nothing but x1 by definition. And x2, yeah, so x2 is what? X2 is, so x1 plus x2 is S2 given S1, so this would be S2 minus S1, right? What is known to you is the sequence Sn, and now you're trying to recover the sequence Xn, right? And likewise, you continue like this. The nth term of the sequence Xn is defined in the following manner. Correct? Is this okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So the upshot of this discussion is that every theorem, every result which we learned about sequences can be now stated in terms of series using this argument here. Yeah, you can go back and forth between sequences and series using this algorithm here, right? For example, we discussed this, right? That a sequence of real numbers converges if and only if it is Cauchy, right? The Cauchy convergence criteria. Yeah. Now you can talk about the Cauchy convergence criteria for convergence of a series, right? I will sort of write it down. Let me list that. Right. So one would say that so for the sequence, we said that a sequence of real numbers converges if and only if it is Cauchy, right? Over here, what would you say? So let's consider a series, the series, the infinite series converges. So the definition says this infinite series converges if and only if the associated sequence of partial sums Sn converges. And now the Cauchy convergence criteria for sequences tells us this is going to happen if and only if the sequence Sn is Cauchy, right? Which means that so let me write that down, and then maybe if things are not okay, I will sort of illustrate what is happening. This is saying that so the criteria in terms of the series would be if and only if the associated sequence of partial sums Sn is Cauchy, which means that for every epsilon positive, there exists a positive integer n such that let me call it n naught, such that summation xn n so what should I call? So I had my running indices n and m right there. So let me make it little k. So xk k running from n to m. This is less than epsilon whenever m is bigger than n is bigger than n naught. I'll quickly write down what is happening. So by the Cauchy convergence criteria for the sequences, the series, so I believe many of you already know this, but let me just, for the sake of completeness, write this down, whatever I spoke. The sequence xn, the series, the infinite series converges if and only if the associated sequence of partial sums which I have denoted by Sn is Cauchy. Yeah. Now, what is the meaning of this statement? The meaning of this statement is that for every epsilon positive, there exists a positive integer n naught such that so over here m is bigger, yeah, Sm minus Sn minus 1, yeah, is strictly less than epsilon whenever m is bigger than n is bigger than n naught, right? So upstairs, I just written Sm minus Sn minus 1 by the definition of the sequence of partial sums is actually all terms, sum of all the terms of the sequence xn, starting from little index n up to m. Correct? Is this okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay. All right.
Ma'am, shouldn't this be for all m greater than equals to n minus 1 greater than equals to n naught?
Doesn't matter. You can do that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's one and the same.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, if you like that, you can do that. Correct? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So, in the above statement of the proposition, so what is that? It is given for every positive epsilon, there is a positive integer n naught such that the sum of all the terms of the sequence xt starting from the nth term to the mth term, all of them are less than epsilon whenever m and n are both bigger than n naught, right? So in particular, if I take m equal to n, what will I get? Little m is equal to little n. If I plug that in here, what will I get?
XM.
Xn, right? So I'll just sort of mark this separately. So this is a digression. So I'll call this statement as statement A. I'll continue from statement A, yeah. Continuing from statement A. So in particular, for m equal to n, sorry, what is happening? Let me add a page. Oh, it's there. Sorry, yeah. So where did I want to apply in particular? In statement A, yeah. In particular for, I unintentionally have to draw this, yeah. In particular, for m equal to n, you will have the term xn is less than epsilon. What we'll have is, for each epsilon fixed, there is a positive integer n naught such that this is true whenever n is bigger than n naught. What does it tell you? What does it tell you about the sequence xn?
It is bounded.
Yes, much more than that.
It is convergent to 0.
It converges to 0, isn't it? Yeah, so this is a corollary. Yeah, corollary. Yeah. So this is, it is bounded, but there's a sort of stronger fallout that we are getting. If the infinite series xn converges, then the associated sequence of partial sums is Cauchy. And in particular, what we noted down here holds true. So the sequence, so over here, the limit of the sequence xn exists and equals 0 as, so I'll write this. So if the infinite series converges, then xn converges to 0. Yeah. So please don't sort of get confused with this symbol here. This is a series. Yeah, this is just a notation. What is the meaning of this notation? I've been sort of trying to emphasize the meaning of this notation is just the associated sequence of partial sums and nothing else. Is this okay?
Yes.
Yeah, but this is only a one-way implication. Is the converse true? That if xn goes to 0, does that imply that the series, infinite series, converge? Yeah? Maybe I will take it up next time. Yeah. So maybe for today's session, I will stop right here. Yeah. Please remember. So I'll stop right here. Unless there are any questions. Let me stop the recording.